Hello everyone, my name is Lynette Lee and I am a certified professional resume writer and a career specialist here at the East Baton Rouge Parish Library Career Center. Let's talk about resume templates. There are many places that you can find them. Some are better than others. Let's talk about them all. So if you go online and just Google free resume templates, probably most of what you're going to see is going to be websites like myperfectresume.com, resumegenius.com, so on and so forth. These websites all claim to help you write a resume absolutely free. And it is absolutely free. Until you try to print it, or save it, or email it, or in fact do anything with this document you just created, and all of a sudden they're asking for a credit card number. We do see people who still like using these services because it makes putting together a resume very easy. But we also see a lot of people who have very bad feelings about it because they feel like they've been tricked, because this service has been advertised as being free, when in point of fact, it's not free. Please be aware that this kind of stuff is out there. If you choose to use it anyway, that's your prerogative, but at least you will go in knowing that this is not free. Therefore, I rate them as a frowny face because we see a lot of people get frustrated with these kinds of websites. Next place that you might go to look for a resume template, a job search website. For example, Indeed.com has their own resume builder built into the website. You need an Indeed resume in order to apply for a job through Indeed. Same thing for LA Works, the Louisiana Workforce Commission. They have their own resume builder on their website, which you need to apply for jobs on their website. Unfortunately, the resumes that they build don't really work well outside of those websites. The Indeed resume, for example, you can only download as a PDF, which means you can never make changes to it, which is unfortunate because the resume that they create for you is a one-size-fits-all resume. Unfortunately, LA Works has the same thing. They have a resume template that they recommend that's one size fits all. It's very difficult to make changes to it. So while these resume builders are very useful for applying for jobs on those websites, we do not recommend using those resumes outside of those websites because they just don't transfer well. There are formatting problems. There's a severe lack of individuality. So, unfortunately, I have to give them the official rating of sad face. I want to like these because they're useful, but they're only useful on those particular websites. Well, what other sources might you find? Well, you could find the library databases resume builders. We have at least 2 library databases that we have subscriptions for that have resume builders built in. One is Career Cruising, the other is Learning Express. Now, both of these resume builders have aspects that I like. They each have a list of relevant keywords for every field. So that's a big savings in helping you figure out what sorts of skills you want to include on your resume. It's very good for people who are stuck in figuring out what to say. Unfortunately, these resume builders have their problems too. There's a lack of individuality. They only have a few templates, and it's very difficult to change the format of any of those templates. And also, there can be some serious formatting issues when you try to download those resumes. So they get an official rating of meh. These things are useful depending on what you want to use them for. If you want to use them to get started, great. If you want to use them to write the entire resume and format it, we advise against it. The next resource you might want to use is Microsoft Word templates. If you open up Microsoft Word, they have a plethora of templates, different styles, all kinds of variety. And for the most part, these are pretty good, with one big caveat. If you need to make any changes to the template, if you need to add more jobs than there are in the example, if you need to rearrange information, if you need to delete something, if you want to change the font size or the color, these templates are going to freak out on you, and the formatting is going to get all messed up, and it's going to take you 45 minutes to fix it. So our big recommendation for Microsoft Word templates is make sure you can use it exactly as is. Otherwise, you might have a difficult time. For that reason, Microsoft Word templates get the official rating of pretty good smiley face. They're pretty good. They're not perfect, but they're pretty good. So what does give me a feeling of approval enough that I'm going to give it a good smiley face? Well, our templates, of course. The Career Center has templates right on our website at careercenterbr.com. What I love about these is that they are completely customizable. You can change them any way that you want. You can reorder information, you can change the layout, make it work for you personally without any formatting freakouts and without asking for a credit card number. So they get an official rating of super duper mega smiley face, highly approve. While we're talking about resume templates, the next thing I'd like to talk about is how to choose the right kind of resume template for you. There are 3 big kinds of resumes. Let's talk about each one, and I'll show you examples of each from the Career Center website. The first type of resume that I want to talk about is a chronological resume, sometimes known as a basic resume. This is, as it sounds, a chronological work history. A chronological resume is simply and most straightforwardly a listing of your chronological work history. That's it. What you did, when, and where. This type of resume is very popular because it's very easy to put together, and it does work well for some people. If you're in a very straightforward job situation, for example, if you've been a truck driver for 10 years and you have a CDL and you want to continue driving trucks, you probably don't need anything super fancy in your resume. A basic resume will be fine. We see that this type of resume works well a lot for people who are in industrial fields, construction, skilled trade, blue-collar kind of work, where the job's pretty standardized. You may do the same sort of thing as a welder in one place that you would do as a welder for another company. So a basic resume is often all that's needed for this kind of job. However, this type of resume does not work for everyone. Just because it's easy doesn't mean it's the best choice for you. If you have an unstable work history, the chronological resume is going to draw attention to that. If you have a large gap in your work history, or if you have not very much experience in the kind of field you're applying for, a chronological resume is going to draw attention to that because all it is your work history. That's it. The other big drawback is that it doesn't give you a place to talk about your special, unique skills. Let's take a look at the chronological resume so that we can see what we're talking about. This template is from the Career Center website. It is our basic resume template. As you can see, it is very straightforward. It launches immediately into work experience. For each position, it shows you where the person worked, what their job title was. Over on the right, the dates that they worked there, and below that, job description. Very straightforward and simple. Below that is education and training, which is where you would put your high school diploma or college or vocational training or GED, plus any kind of relevant certifications that you have for your field. Very straightforward, and if you have a straightforward job history and job future, this might be a good fit for you. But buyer beware, it's not right for everyone. The second type of resume is a functional resume. A functional resume is kind of the opposite of a chronological resume. Whereas a chronological resume focuses entirely on your chronological work history, a functional resume is more about your special skills, your unique qualifications, your greatest accomplishments, all of the things that make you special. And the actual work history is a tiny little section at the bottom of the resume. Why would you do this? Well, it works really well for people who are not well served by a more traditional resume. For example, if you have a very large gap in your work history that you don't have a good way of covering, a functional resume draws attention away from that. If you have a spotty, unstable work history, or if you're applying for work that's in a different field from what you've ever done before, A functional resume draws attention away from the problems of your work history and draws attention where you want it on your most relevant marketable skills. Let's take a look at what a functional resume looks like so that you can see what I'm talking about. This functional template is from the Career Center's website. It is our functional template for non-traditional job seekers. Looking at this resume from Ms. Jennifer Sachs, I keep scrolling down. I'm 2/3 of the way through the resume, and I haven't made it to employment history yet. What do I see? Well, we've got a summary of qualifications where Ms. Sachs talks about having a master's in administration, a talent for training, and being an effective manager. What kind of picture in our heads do we get of this person? Let's read on. She talks about some of the highlights of her experience. She breaks this into two main areas. She's very good at administration and management, and she's very good at communications and interpersonal relations. And she includes some specific details of the accomplishments that she has in each of those areas. So what we can notice looking through this resume is certain words keep coming up. Administration keeps coming up. Management keeps coming up. Interpersonal relations, communications, these ideas keep coming up. So we can assume, based on this, that Ms. Sachs is applying for a job in some kind of administrative management role. Maybe an office manager, maybe human resources, something along those lines. And she seems very well qualified. Then we look down at her employment history, which is this very tiny section at the bottom of the resume, and we see all of her work history is as a teacher. That's the only thing she's ever done. She's never worked as an office manager or a human resources person. She's never worked in an office at all. Why would she do this resume this way? Well, with a more traditional resume, she wouldn't have a chance. The first thing that they would see on a chronological resume was that she's a teacher and she's never been anything else, and they would assume that she's not qualified for an office job. By doing her resume this way, by making most of the focus be on the skills that she has and not necessarily the environment where she learned them, which was not traditional for an office job, by doing it this way, she gets the attention of hiring managers who otherwise wouldn't give her a second glance. This is a really good trick when you're in the situation where you're applying for a job in a completely different field, or if you're in a situation where you don't want to draw attention to certain aspects of your work history. For example, we can also see that Ms. Sachs has not had a job in 6 years. This is not the sort of thing you want to advertise on the top of your resume, so she hides it near the bottom. So, the functional resume can be a very useful thing for people who need one, but it's not perfect. The main drawback of a functional resume is that it's very tricky to do well. You have to think very carefully about what you've got to offer, what they're looking for, and how you can word what you've got to offer in terms of what they're looking for. It's difficult to do, and there's a risk in doing it. Applicant tracking software often cannot read or recognize functional resume templates because the style is so different from more traditional resumes. So you may not be getting credit for things you put on a functional resume if it's run through ATS. But it is still the best option for some people who otherwise wouldn't be given a chance. Finally, let's talk about the third type of resume, a hybrid or combination resume. As it sounds, a hybrid resume is a hybrid of the two types we've talked about already. It's got some aspects of the chronological resume, like the traditional format that employers like and that ATS software can read. But it's also got some aspects of the functional template, like a skills section that lets you highlight your best, most relevant skills. Let's take a look at what a hybrid resume looks like. This template is from the Career Center website. This is our basic professional resume template. And I'm going to ignore the first part for now, and I'm going to skip down to the work history, the professional experience, which you can see is laid out exactly the same way as it was on the basic chronological resume. It's just where he worked, when, and what he did there. So it's got that traditional format. But above that, it's got some aspects of the functional resume. There's a skills section. I love a skills section. A skills section lets you tailor your resume and personalize it and highlight the best things you have to offer. Above that, it's got a tagline with his 3 best skills: office administration, sales support, and project coordination. So at a glance, people can see who this guy is and what his specialty in his field is. Very savvy. So the hybrid resume, which is kind of the best of both worlds for resumes, who does it work well for? Most people. This is the template that we end up recommending the most often to our clients, is some sort of hybrid resume. It works well for people who've had a few different kinds of jobs and want to highlight one aspect. It works for people who have certain skills that they want to display. For example, if you're a computer programmer, I would absolutely recommend having a skills section on your resume that is just a list of the software and computer programs that you're proficient in. It works well for lots of people. But again, not everyone. There are some people who are in a more straightforward situation who are more well-served by the traditional chronological basic resume. And there are other people in more complicated situations who maybe have some sort of obstacle to overcome who are better served by a functional resume. You got to figure out what works for you. If you enjoyed this seminar, please like this video. If you would like more content like this, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for joining us.